Hey guys, welcome to yet another episode of the Blue Inversion Podcast. I'm your host Shayan as usual, and this is episode 7. So let's get started. Now, today's topic is my first art series, and I'll be talking about art today. So it's a it's gonna be a useful episode, I guess. But before we get started with that, I just wanted to talk a little bit about the podcast itself. So I've been noticing this trend that I'm editing the podcast way too much. Like not like some surgical editing, like not that much that I will go to that extent for my tutorials. But for the podcast, I've been like spending a lot of time doing retakes of some parts. So I think that is against the whole thesis which got me started with the podcast, like to give you a authentic bridge into my life as a artist, as a blender artist, and whatever I am. So it's not authentic anymore if I'm doing too many retakes and all that. And I've been doing all these retakes for some silly stuff, like maybe I'm drinking some water out of this, and the microphone picks that up, or the video camera picks that up, or I have this floating outline, this outline of what I'm going to talk about in front of me on the screen, and uh, I'll be behaving as if I do not have an outline and winging the whole thing and coming up with all these great ideas, which is assimilating like all of a sudden in real time in my mind. That's not true. Like I take some time to make a basic outline. Of course, it's not scripted, but I have an outline. Like, what were you thinking? So I'm like, my audience is not gonna be like, you guys are not gonna be like, oh my god, he has an outline for his podcast. I'm not gonna subscribe to that. I want a guy who is winging the whole thing and has some perfect uh, real time, some real time processing in his brain, which can talk perfectly about its subject without having any guidance and without any forethought. So that's pretty silly of me. So I'm not gonna do that. I'm gonna look at that outline properly and make sure that you understand that I forgot, I lost my thread of thoughts, and I am looking back at it to take reference of what to talk about next, because that happens a lot to me, especially at the starting phase. Because I'm just trying to get better at podcasting too with this, because podcasting is something I'm interested in as well, apart from making art and the whole Blender 3D thing. So yeah, so that is one thing. And now a big announcement: if you have not checked it out on the YouTube community post, or if you're not following on Instagram, which you should, by the way, then I think you do not know that the podcast is now weekly. So this is because I think I'll be spending a little bit more time to make it a bit more visually appealing by putting some more editing stuff, like not without cuts, actually. Like, you know how I edit my episodes, like all of a sudden my artwork pops into your face and then there's no transition. Like, yeah, I will do more of that. So I need some more time for that. And also the actual audio that goes in to the mic, it sounds horrible. So I have to do some mixing and mastering. I spend a lot of time actually on that. So I thought that it will be better to keep one episode per week, and then I can also showcase all of my art. For example, the time lapse that you're seeing right now, so that is a full it's a full time lapse of all the artworks that I did the past week. So the this is a Sparrow series, and I have 5 artworks there. You have already seen the first time lapse on the previous episode, so I excluded that one. But other than that, the other 4 time lapses are all like stringed together, and this is, you are watching the full time lapse for all the artworks. So that would be fun, like a full recap of the whole week. So that just changes the mood of the podcast a little bit. Like I can also talk about what I did for the whole week. So that would makes good a good summary of the things going on here. And also, I think most importantly, I'm getting more time to work on the tutorials, which you might have noticed are not that frequent, and I'm trying my best to make them more frequent. I've been stuck with some other work and work on the product as well as I had mentioned previously. So that's been a reason, but mostly it is a bit. I could have managed my time a little bit better, which I'm doing right now, and that will give me open up some more amount of time for the tutorial. So that would be a pretty good, a nice strategy, I guess, of doing this time management thing for the whole week. So once a week there will be a podcast, and I will try to upload a video that might be a tutorial or a time lapse or something else, some tips and tricks videos maybe. There, I will try to put up one weekly video apart from the podcast. So that would be a nice idea, I guess. So that is all that I had to talk about. And funny enough, that I was talking about cutting down on the intro in the last episode, and here we are. So we are like 7 minutes into the podcast, and I haven't even talked about my art series yet. So before I get into the art series directly, I want to show you where you can find them. So I hope if you all of you have some kind of art social profile online, like Divine Art, or maybe you have some Instagram, of course. I guess not for art. Everybody has Instagram these days. So and ArtStation. So if you do not have ArtStation, you should have ArtStation. You know. Anyways, if you have ArtStation, then you must be following me by now. If you're not following me, I still love you. Like, I mean, you should follow me. This is my profile. Look how beautiful it's looking. Just look at it. Why you're not following this, man? Just follow this, buddy. And actually, what I was gonna show you is that you see this feature on ArtStation that I love, that you have all these categories, and then since I'm making art series, I can just categorize them into albums like this, and you can just check out my my works like that. This is the new art series. So we are not going to that right now. That will be for next podcast. So I do not want to spoil the suspense. Anyways, this is the Sparrow series. So see how convenient. Scroll down. These are the. I do not actually. Actually, what is worrying me right now is that I do not know the number of albums I can have on ArtStation. So if that will be if there's a limit on that, then I do not know what I will do. Maybe I will have an archive for the older works on my website. I do not know. I'll see. Speaking of archive, I hope you are keeping up on the Blue Archive channel, because I have some content there, and I haven't promoted it that much. But there's this video I did for a customer that it was a full tutorial, like not a well edited out tutorial, but it's like more of a narrated real time screen capture of me modeling a Adidas slider. So if you're into that, then you might check it out. And if you like the sneaker tutorial, then maybe you can watch that. It's a little bit more in depth. So it's an hour long, and it's like you can take out an afternoon on an evening or an evening. Then you can just sit down and like just watch it, or maybe you can even follow it because it's easy to follow. I'm going real slow with my broken English, so you can follow that and get frustrated for an hour, and then you might end up making a model of an Adidas slider. So that will be one thing that you might want to keep up with. I made another one that was more like an answer for a question. Somebody wanted to know about a volumetric glow for their scene. So I made an answer for that. That's a beginner tutorial, more of a beginner tutorial. So if you want to check that out, then you might. But the slider tutorial, the Adidas slider tutorial is pretty in depth. So I recommend you actually watch that. And anyways, other tutorials are in the making, and I will be repeating them out slowly. I'm a little bit busy this week. Other than that, I'm always putting out the daily artworks and the podcast for sure, as we are doing this right now. Of course, I'm running late. I didn't talk about that yet, but this is Wednesday already, and I should have put this out on Tuesday. But that is because I have a very bad schedule, and I have made the changes today because I do not want to repeat this from happening. Like, I want to stop this from happening again. Like, Tuesday should be the day that the podcast comes out, and I like to maintain that discipline. So what I was doing is that I was recording the podcast let's say on Tuesday evening, and then I was editing it till I'm dead, until I'm editing in the whole thing till like 3 or 4 a.m. in the morning that night. So the whole podcast, from the recording to the putting it out, was taking like about let's say about 6-7 hours almost. So that. I'm not saying that it should not take that much amount of time, because really I'm really picky about the audio quality and also how the visuals look on the YouTube video. So, and also the descriptions. I maintain the whole bio on. There's a whole list of all episodes on the website, and also I take some time to write the show notes properly, linking them out. So it takes time. Also posting them. Doing social media has been another challenge for me. I'll come to that on another episode, I'll guess. But yeah, so that was the problem. So what I've come up with is that I'm gonna record this on Tuesday, or I'm gonna record this on Monday. So that would be great, because I'll be just finished with the art series from the previous week, and I'll be all pumped up about it. Only just started with the new series, not too much into it. So I'll be recording it on that day, and then on Tuesday I can spend the other 4 hours in the evening to edit it out and put it out. So you know what the problem is? The problem is I get stressed. The stress that comes with working late, like 3-4 a.m., and like checking if I have surpassed the deadline or not. That's a stressful situation, and stress is never good. I I'm not saying that I do not that it is a lot of work to do the podcast. I'm 100% into working hard, because the kind of things that I'm going for needs a lot of work. Of course, most good things need a lot of work, but hard work with stress is never good. So it is very easy to do hard work with stress, in my opinion. But doing hard work without stress is the real challenge, and is the key, I guess, because especially in this kind of situations, in this kind of in this kind of works, like where you are not in a autopilot mode, where you are not doing repetitive muscle memory things, but you're coming up with something like creative work, this artworks, or recording the podcast. So yeah, so that takes a lot of thinking and having a free mind. Otherwise, most resources of your mind is allocated to stress handling. Then you get really crippled by that, and you cannot use your full potential for the creative side. So yeah, let's get into the first point that I have written out for this episode. Why art series? Why the hell am I doing art series, right? I don't know, man. Like, I did not actually want to do art series after the first attempt. I had this episode, like episode 4 or 5, where I said that I'm considering an art series, because the inspiration came from albums in music. Because you have these albums where you have all the songs of the same mood and aesthetic, and then it is all stitched together, and you have this whole experience that the listener can go through. So I've always thought about how will it be if I have something like that. A movie is kind of like that. It's a collection of many artworks and ideas, but making a movie very frequently, and it's like making a full featured movie is too much work, and it's gonna take a long time, and it's hard to stay motivated till that, and I'm not sure if I'm skilled enough to pull that off yet. So that is one thing. But art series, it's pretty achievable because I was already doing an artwork every day. So I thought that, hey, I had that idea of making something like a music album. So the art series seemed like a very doable thing for me. Well, I was already like week 2 of the every week artwork thing. I had started with the podcast, so that was the inspiration. And then as I'm doing the art series, I do not really pick a theme for the artwork or the whole series even. I just start on the first day, that is Monday of the week. I just sit down and I have this list of ideas written out on my phone, that very crude ideas in text format. And then I pick something up, I do some Frankenstein surgery with some other ideas, and then I form a form a collective idea. And then I just start on that one artwork. And I only focus on that one artwork for now. I'm not thinking about the whole series yet. So that is also a challenge, because you have to have the confidence in yourself that you can come up with more ideas for the same kind of theme. So that's one thing. But I do not have a particular theme in mind, so that makes it little bit more loose. And in that way, the what I think the series is about gets clearer and clearer as I keep making the whole artwork, each artwork. And then by the end of the week, I'm like, I know what this series is about. And when you take the idea from each artwork and you look at it from a zoomed out view, then you understand that, okay, so this is what my mind was thinking in the subconscious, and this is what I lean towards naturally, without if I do not allow myself to overthink or be picky about my ideas or the direction that I'm going. So that has been a very interesting thing for me, that I'm not allowing myself the time, and that has allowed me to understand myself. It is like you try to boil down the art series to something like, hey, this is about anxiety and all that stuff. I want to deliver this message out to the people watching, who will be seeing this artwork. And but no, I think it's more of an internal experience. So everything built up inside me, emotionally, experience wise, all the influences throughout my life, very disconnected parts of those come out, and they stitch together to form an art series. Like, that's a very spontaneous form of art, and I have been really enjoying and trying to explore and understand what is going on. So with this artwork, with this art series, for example, this artwork that you're seeing on screen right now, this is called claustrophobia. And this whole concept of trying to depict a condition or a disease using art, that also very symbolic, not very literal. This whole concept, I didn't sit down and think about it. I didn't come up with it and then execute. I was executing while the idea of the whole concept was getting iteratively clearer. So that's a very exciting thing for me, and it's a very low. It is a very. It's not very demanding on your creative side, so that creates a lot of, that takes away the stress part from it. So I think that has been a very important reason why I have been able to come up with ideas every day, and so far I'm keeping up. So that's been a good idea, I guess, to do this artwork spontaneously, that I always say. So yeah, So that's why I'm doing this art series. And it's like on the episode that I first mentioned art series, the next episode I came back and I said art series idea completely failed because I was trying so hard to make it happen. So I couldn't come up with any ideas. I was planning ahead for the 5 days what I'm gonna make, and then it didn't work. It was too much work, and it felt like some big movie I'm working on. Everything has to work together and all that. So I ditched it, and I didn't work on it that week. So that would be the second week of my art journey, this everyday art thing going on. And then what happened, surprisingly, the next time I came up to do the artwork, I made Sparrow, and I kind of liked the morbid kind of story that it was getting into. So I thought about then I didn't have much time the next day to build something from scratch, some model or to rig it again. I didn't have that extra time to work on it. So what I ended up doing is that I took that Sparrow and I was like, hey, I always wanted to do an art series, right? So let's give it a shot. Let's see if I can make two images out of this Sparrow thing, and if it works, it works. Otherwise, I will just let it be, and I will not come back to it. Come back to it. So I did that, and the second artwork actually worked. So I had kind of okay-ish kind of render, and I was not very happy with the that artwork itself on its own, but the fact that I came up with another idea for the same similar kind of theme for the Sparrow, that was surprising to me, that maybe I can give it another shot. So the next day I came up, I thought about something else to do with the Sparrow, some different compositions, some different angles. Maybe I was trying while I was inside Blender, I was trying different modifiers, different angles with the camera, some new. I was trying to explore some new settings which I didn't never got into because I never needed them, and then when I came to know about them, very small things, maybe a new modifier, the build modifier or something like that, and then I'm like, I absolutely needed this so far, and I didn't know about it. So like that, I'm also learning a lot of things. So slowly stumbling upon the next one, I finished the art series, and that gave me an instant boost in my confidence that I can make art series every week maybe. So this art series that I'm making right now, which I'm not going to talk about much because it's going to be the topic for the next podcast, so why spoil it? But one thing I will say is that it has been a much easier ride so far. I have been a little bit less worried about whether I'll be able to come up with something new or not for the rest of the week. But nevertheless, it can always fail, and a day might come when I do not have any idea for the same theme, and then I stop doing the art series thing. But so far, I think I'm enjoying pretty much, and I'm pretty clear headed right now and enjoying the thing. So, a few people have asked me about the meaning behind my works, and that brings me to the next point of my outline that I've set out initially for this podcast. And we've been deviating a lot already, but let me answer this one: that what is the meaning behind my works? I also somebody asked me the same thing on art on Blender Artist, and yeah, the Blender Artist forum. If you're there, then you can find my artworks there as well. I'm assembling them into a whole thread for the whole series in the finished projects category, so you can check that out. Now, somebody asked me that what is the meaning of my work, and excuse me, and then I wrote it down with the answer. Like the person was a little bit confused with the message behind my work for the new series, and that's because it really doesn't have any literal meaning. So I wrote this down, and a I felt like I should clarify this on the podcast as well. It is my artworks are, you can say, it is kind of from my past experiences, the way I handle and the way I process emotions and feelings that I have been that I internally come up with, or that situations have put me to. So the way I process those emotions mixed with my inspiration and things, the kind of subjects that I generally enjoy in other people's artwork or in movies, the whole thing comes together to form these artworks, and they are not at all literal. So it is a very feeling and emotion driven work. It is not about a message, but rather it is about how am I feeling that day, like a autobiographical way of um, making artwork. So in a way, I can look back at these artworks and I instantly get reminded of how was I feeling that day, of the music that I was listening to that day. So that's a extra benefit that I've been getting from the everydays, that I have been able to store memories in a different format. You know how you this happens with music a lot, that when you listen to some music on loop for a phase of your life, like we have this song that we love, and that becomes our jam for the next few weeks or a few months, even if you are going through something similar, and then you keep repeating that song, and that becomes the anthem for whatever you're going through that time, through that phase. And when that phase is over, happy, sad, whatever phase is over, you kind of forget about that song, um, and then you discover that song all of a sudden, after a lot of days, in a different environment, in a different mood situation, and then you get, oh, the shit, my time lapse ended. So I think we will end the podcast very soon. Let me take the time lapse to a very beautiful looking frame, and I will pause it. Okay, all right, here. So let me finish that realm of thought I was talking about. Yeah. Then when you come back to that song after a few days, after a few months or years that you've forgotten about completely, then it takes you back to that similar, takes you back to the memories of that phase, and it is much more vivid. Like you feel it. It's not like saying about talking about that time. Like the music somehow, I feel like the format in which the memory has been saved in your mind through music is different from the actual visual memory that is saved of the same incident or the same event. So that would be a little bit technical way of putting it. But if I talk about something and you think of a past event, uh, versus if I play the song that you have been listening for a long time on loop during that phase or during that event, that has a different effect on the psychology of the mind, I guess. And that's very interesting. So this artworks in a way is a different way of storing in a different way of storing what I feel, and also as a way to express that to the world. And this has led to this weird and this crazy horrors, or this horror and this unique kind of weird themes that I've been picking for the art series has been it has been actually pretty positive for me, the way I come up with the artworks, because it is giving me new kind of ideas and themes for the artworks, because I've been leaning towards more towards what I am interested in, and my experiences and feelings and emotions. So it has been, as I said, in a lot of ways autobiographical, in a very abstract manner. And so if you're looking for literal meaning in the works, you're that would be great if you can come up with something, because I didn't have any literal meaning in mind. It's all emotions and feelings. So if you see the artwork and you get this surreal kind of this confusion that arises in your brain when you look at these artworks, that is the target for this. That's what I'm aiming for with these works, that to give them this surreal kind of taste, which makes you pause for a second and think about what the literal meaning behind this artwork is, and then I'll come and reply to you that it has no meaning, but it is emotion and all that. But yeah, you get the point, right? The story behind this artwork is just that I'm trying to translate my emotions and how I'm feeling at that moment. So yeah, so I think that is a good segue and time to end this podcast. I thought about making this podcast longer because I'm doing this once a week. We are 3 minutes in, and I think it will be fine. You do not need to listen to any more rambling from me. You are free. But if you showed up, then that means a lot to me. And if you're listening to the end, because not everyone listens to the end, all right? I might be getting a lot of views on YouTube for this, maybe 100, 200 views, which are a lot, of course, first of all, because that means a lot. 100, 200 people listening to you ramble every week. That's a lot, I guess. So I deeply appreciate that. And also, I appreciate from the core of my heart to the people who make it till the end, because that means you guys are here with me and kind of give my weird ideas a second thought and give them a chance to penetrate your dome, and you just try to understand what all the weird things that I'm talking about. Sometimes my ideas get really strange and silly. They sound silly sometimes, the way I explain them on the podcast. But some people still make it till the end, according to my analytics on YouTube. So that really means a lot. And everybody who has been subscribed on the other platforms, listening to the podcast while you're in the gym or maybe doing some other work, and this has been a passive consumption of my audio podcast. Big props to you guys too. Big shout out. So thank you so much for all the support. I will end the podcast here and see you on the next week, and also see you on the next video that I put out on my channel, if I make any this week. I don't know. This week has been a bit busy, so maybe next week. But anyways, I will be definitely coming to the podcast next week. Make sure you're keeping up on the artworks daily. And yeah, so that was it. Bye. Take care, and take care of your loved ones. See you on the next one. This was Cheyenne from Blue Inversion. Bye.